Well, good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us today. As we have heard for the last month through the media, first of all, and thank you for each one of you reporting, we've heard that the governor is going to be calling a special session. The idea behind that, as he has shared, is due to the tragedy that happened at Annunciation School and Church in that community. And what I'd like to tell you today is, again, as all of you know, the governor is the only person in the state that can call a special session. We are waiting for the governor to do that. I have been in meetings for the last probably 2 weeks on and off, the four leaders and the governor, and we've been in those conversations. And today, our meeting was very brief. We, as you saw in the public, the Democrats had put forward parameters that would have really silenced the voice of the legislature to get work done in a special session. I returned an idea, kind of a broad framework that just reiterates, again, Governor, when you call that special session, as you know, House Republicans will show up. We will be there to work. We are fully invested in the work that needs to happen. We will do that. We also want to give the legislature the full process to hear bills, vet bills, and have them go through the committee process. In the House specifically, we are tied, and so anything that goes through both the committee process or that gets passed off the House floor will need to be bipartisan. We've already done that work throughout this entire year in the legislature, and that would continue even with the topics at hand. That means any member would be able to introduce a bill. They would be referred to committee, and then the committees would take their process. That is what we put forward to the governor today, what I had put forward to him, and just saying we want that legislative process to work. Again, the governor is the only one who can call a special session. We stand ready to fully participate in the legislative process. The legislature is the only body that can pass bills, and then of course the governor could either sign or veto bills. But that's where we stand today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leader Harry Niska.
Thank you. Well, it's become clear, I think, to everyone what should have been obvious from the start, that the governor's talk of a special session has been a partisan political stunt from the beginning. Unfortunately, he has not been interested, or has not acted as if he's interested in finding bipartisan solutions to the problem of school safety, the problem of public safety, the problem of mental health, but has instead been trying to demand something that's really, frankly, bizarre in the history of special sessions in Minnesota. The idea that Democrats who wouldn't even give certain bills hearings when they had the majority now want to fast track those bills through without actually even releasing what the language of those bills would be, but try to fast track those through in a special session. Normal special sessions are either things that have broad bipartisan support or things where there's been a legislative process that almost got done before there was a need for a special session. This isn't anything like that. Republicans have been have made clear that we're open to serious bipartisan solutions when it comes to school safety, when it comes to public safety, when it comes to mental health, and now it's clear that the governor really isn't interested in that. He's really just interested in trying to politicize a really horrible tragedy, and that is really unfortunate for the state of Minnesota, the lack of leadership from his corner. We'll take questions.
Did you guys submit a proposal, and what did that include, what did that not include?
Again, yes, I did send something over to the governor's office, and it included the fact that the governor is the only one that can call that special session. Bills will be introduced. Determinations would be made if we would go that far as any spending that would take place. That could be discussions and decisions made by the four leaders. Bills will make their way through the process and then be able to be voted on, whether it's in committee or on the House floor. It was just very basic of how the legislature actually works. And to Leader Niska's point, I think it's important to recognize the work that we did when we returned on June 9th for a one-day special session. That work had already been fully vetted all the way through the entire legislative session. Bills were introduced, they were discussed. As you know, we have co-chairs in every committee. That was already worked on. This is a very unique situation that we can handle, but it needs to fully be vetted through the legislative process in order to get the work done in a bipartisan way.
Did you guys have any mention in your proposals of gun legislation at all?
We didn't have anything specific as far as any bill language or any specifics on that. We included school and community safety, mental health supports, public safety, and as you know, public safety also includes guns, firearms, and any type of law that goes around that. So it's very broad, but we also had said not limited to that. As you know, the governor has been very clear on wanting to handle the fraud that continually comes up to the surface where you're reporting on fraud. That OIG bill did not get over the finish line in the House at the end of this year. And so this would give the opportunity, should the governor want, but specifically should legislators want to move those fraud preventions through, they would be able to do that in this process. Again, bills introduced, referred to committee, passed through committees, and then back onto the House floor.
I know you've said that you need to see language around any kind of gun restrictions for using statements, but is there any world where you would even consider like a restriction or any kind of, ban on an assault type level?
Well, I think what's clear and what I think the media has been clear in reporting is that there's not any sort of language along those lines that has majority support in either house. In either the House or the Senate. In fact, from a lot of reporting, it sounds like anything along those lines would have bipartisan opposition in the Senate, which is currently down 2 members already. And so Democrats, I think, would maybe be at 30 or maybe 31 votes in the Senate on whatever configuration of that language is, which I think is why the governor hasn't actually put out any specific proposal that even could be heard or could have hearings about. I think another important thing to remember is even though bills like that have been introduced, even when Democrats had the majority, they didn't even bother having committee hearings on those bills. So what the governor is asking for is that we just pass bills that A, haven't been written yet, and B, have never had committee hearings, and skip past the entire legislative process, ignore the voice of all of the other legislators, all of their districts, and just skip straight to the end based on demands that he's making to leadership. That's never been the way we govern in Minnesota. It's not the right way to govern in Minnesota, and really it's just political posturing by the governor, which is a really unfortunate way to handle a tragedy that we should be able to come together and find some solutions on.
Well, obviously, you only control your caucus, so you heard from the Association of Parents, they wanted an assault weapons ban, a high-capacity ammunition ban. Does your caucus support anything even close to what they're asking for?
I don't think that there are any Republican House votes in favor of those kind of proposals, but it's, again, you have to actually have bill language, you have to have a hearing on a bill in order to see whether there is some place where those things can come together. But the other states that have done that are A, tied up in legal challenges, and B, haven't really seen results that would suggest that that's a real solution to the problem.
Leader Niska, you told one of our reporters that you wouldn't let a bill, an assault weapons bill, even come to the floor. So how can you talk me through how that is transparent in the way that you're asking for?
I said I was not going to vote for putting that bill on the floor in the Rules Committee, and I believe I said I hadn't asked the other members of the Rules Committee how they would vote. But I did. But I do think it's unlikely that would come through the Rules Committee.
Is your guys' understanding that a special session will be happening at this point, with or without your support? Like, is that going to be called? Is that announcement imminent? So how much that work logistically with the makeup?
So again, the governor is the only one that can call the special session. If he chooses to do that, or when he does, House Republicans will be there. We will not deny quorum in the House. That is something that we will not do. House Republicans show up and we do the hard work for Minnesotans. So if he chooses to call it, or when he chooses to call it, we will be there ready to work. Any other questions? Yes?
Just in the outline of the proposal the governor did, do you see parts where there's a lot of agreement between parties and in other proposals there?
You know what, as far as the proposal that made its way out to the media out of a closed-door 4-leader governor meeting, multiple meetings, I think that questions for that should best be directed to them.
Leader Johnson's statement made it sound like the negotiations today deteriorated pretty quickly. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like in the room? Is the vibe still?
You know, again, as I've said multiple times, the fact that we are still talking, that is a good sign. And so we had a meeting today. It was brief, but we were still meeting. And I think that will continue. We have a long year ahead of us. Whether the governor chooses to call us back into a special session, or when we return on February 17th for our regular session, the topics that are at hand are still going to be very much part of discussion. We recognize that. So in no way do I think talks have broken down. I think the governor is really doing his job as governor, the only one that can do that, to try to decide whether or not a special session calling for that is the appropriate thing at this time. Anything else?
Yeah, looking at the governor's proposal here, it does sort of look like an all-of-the-above approach, and that's sort of the same language that I've seen out of your caucus as well, but obviously the missing piece here is guns. So why, if all of the above is the way forward, why is guns not forward?
Let me direct you, and I don't have a copy of that in front of me right now, but I'll direct you to the part that talks about only these items. It cuts the legislative committee process out. That is concerning. As you read through that proposal, we have to have bills that are fully vetted within the committee process and then moved forward. And so I'm not going to get into the specifics on that. Those are good questions for how they see that working. But typically, what we would be doing is we would be having conversations about framework, logistics, time frame, and security concerns about a special session. And then the legislative work can continue on in a condensed form, but can continue on in a transparent process, and then we would go from there. Anything else? Any other questions?
Just to clarify your point here, is your specific contention that you're expressing there with the part that says if any legislative committee is unable to agree to final details, legislative leaders and the governor will be responsible for approving final rule language, et cetera?
That is part of it, but if you go further up into the document where it talks about only these items before the list of A through I think it is, that sentence right before there is the one that is of most concern. Any other questions or clarification? Thank you again for being here. House Republicans stand ready to go. We will lead with integrity, and we look forward to doing the work for the people of Minnesota. Very, very hard topics, but things that have to get done. Community safety, school safety, mental health supports, and punishing criminals, as we've seen the number of shootings across Minnesota escalate. We have got to get a hold of public safety too. That includes our kids in our schools. We look forward to doing the work, and it will continue on. Thank you.